Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Lindy Cowling, Raising Reality. Title of the video this afternoon is on Valentine's Day, that is the 14th of February 2023. Bullet for My Valentine, energy hazards of online dating. Bullet for My Valentine, energy hazards of online dating. So I hope you're all well. I'm going to launch in. I'm probably going to do a live event on that, on what I'm about to talk about, because it feels like a live event would be a good way of shifting the energy, a bit like I did to do with masculinity and toxic sexual traits within things like that a few months ago. I did a few live events online which went really well, and we did a lot of big pieces of work with that. So I hope you're all well. So as you know, this is an experiential channel based on my personal and professional experience. That's based on, it'll be 23 years this year, 23 years experience, but also my very personal experiences of navigating through human life and all the energetics associated with it in terms of the expansion of consciousness, the evolution of the soul, the transformation of the spirit, the transformation of the human to come into a 0 point field of energy on the ever increasing rungs of one's consciousness to become as conscious as possible in the human body, i.e. ascension. So I'm going to just launch straight in. I only talk about things, like I say, that I've experienced firsthand. This is something that I'm experiencing. I describe myself rather in this terms in the world of online dating, which I've been in the world of online dating on and off since October 2022. As it's been a vast learning curve. Some of the learning curve has been extremely difficult, and some of it has been amazing, and some of it has been very hazardous actually. So I'm going to launch in with the energetic side of it. So when one is engaging in energy with anybody in any way, whether you are talking to them face to face, whether you are messaging them, whether you are WhatsApp messaging them, whether you are texting them, whether you are talking to them on the phone, whether you're on camera phone, whether you're meeting them in person, there is a dynamic or a flow of energy exchange between you, whatever you're talking about, whatever you're engaging in. It's part of, being the humans that we are, multidimensional beings. We exchange energy. We exchange energy actually when we think about someone, especially we think about them with intense feeling of one sort or another. We exchange energy when we're interacting with them as well. So there's a dance of energy. So I think personally, I want to say this personally, but and professionally, that if you are very intuitive, empathic, psychic, very sensitive, I think the world of online dating is even more, let's say, interesting. I could say challenging. You could say, well, if you have intuitive and psychic abilities, that should make it easier to navigate that world. And I guess you could say it would make it, it would be beneficial, or a beneficial tool to use those up front before you engage with somebody. But if you get sort of pulled in by your emotions and your attraction and your chemistry and almost like the sexual hit of it, it's like the intuitive and the psychic bit kind of automatically comes last to that, and it's a question of reframing that and trying to get it to come first. The reason being, when you get engaged in these dances of energy, there are many complexities to this because of online dating. Let's put it this way. Let's put it in a plain, simple speaking, because I'm known for my plain and simple speaking. In the olden days, excuse me, keep doing my nose is tickling. In the olden days, which wasn't that long ago, when one was in a one-horse town or village, one could expect to meet the local boy or the local girl or the local whatever in the village and get to know each other that way, or in the local town, and it wasn't very far afield. Now, with the um, evolution of online dating, one gets a massive, massive influx of different energies, different people, all in the same melting pot. And one can flick on many profiles one after another, or they can flick on your profile one after another. One gets access to people a couple of 100 miles away if one doesn't just put a local area. So there's a massive turnover of people looking at your profile, focusing on you, thinking about you, lusting after you, or vice versa. And so there's a big mismatch of energies, and a lot of those energies, and I brought this up at the live events, is kind of kept in the cyber world, almost the cyber sex world, where a lot of those energies don't land in the physical because people, the logistics of the distance involved puts them off, or they prefer to keep it in the cyber world because they see it as less complications, like I won't get hurt if I just keep it as almost not quite real, but real. So I get a kind of an emotional hit, I get a romantic hit, I get a sexual hit, but I don't have to meet the person, or I don't have to get my heart broken in the same way by the person. I can get the benefits without the complications of a relationship. And I noticed the word I said there. I didn't say without the complications of a connection, because you can and do connect with people whether you meet them in person or not, because it's just it's a flow of energy. So there is that involved, but there are many out there, and I can speak from absolute personal and professional experience here, but personal experience, particularly, again, I'm going to cite this age range again, particularly men in their 30s more than any other demographic. It tips into their early 40s. It is in the late 20s a bit, but particularly once they hit 30, between 30 and 39, this is prevalence of largely not wanting the emotional connection of dating or a relationship, but wanting it, but actually craving connection, but wanting it, let's say, in certain ways or on certain terms, that means there's always a get out clause or a back door, and they don't have to emotionally engage too much. They can keep it in a detached, artificial manner, and this to me is a travesty. It's an absolute travesty for them. And it's an absolute travesty for any woman connecting with that, really, because it's so sad. I've said this before at the live events and the previous videos I brought out on those live events, particularly the ones on the talking about the cyber sex world. It's almost like you go into the realms of artificial intelligence, but it's not. It's one step away from artificial intelligence, because you're keeping it in an alternate reality. It isn't kind of in this reality, but it's kind of in an alternate one as well, because a large percentage, I'm going to say as high as 80% of the 100% that I've engaged with, try to keep it in that world. Now, some of it is the demographics of the distances involved, but some of it, and that is there's a real factor, but some of it is to reduce getting a broken heart, reduce trying to fit that into your life, a real life person, reduce the so-called complications of a real life person. And I mean, if you can hear the words I'm saying, that's a tragedy, because to be human is to touch, to feel, to engage, it's that warmth, and they are actually craving it, but they're putting above human connection and human relations and human touch. They're putting other things above that, and it's just a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe happening. It's a catastrophe happening in front of our eyes. I've said many times over the years now, the first age range, let's say en masse across the world, that will ascend in the human body are those between the ages of 30 and 39. They're the first waves that will go into 0 point ascended form of their consciousness. That hasn't changed since about 2013, 2014. That is happening. And I do believe that's why they're the heaviest targeted age range, deliberately targeted, because that's known to be the age range that's doing it first. And until I was in that world, I didn't realize how bad it was. And I've said before, I describe myself as like an undercover psychic detective. I'm not in there for that. I was in there and still am in there for my personal reasons. But as it so happens, I always teach and talk about what experiences are happening and always apply an energetic spin or view of it. And so I'm commenting on what's really happening, and it's been astonishing to me at what I have seen and what I've discovered through personal experience. These are the age ranges I'm mostly dealing with. These are the age ranges that are largely attracted to me and my energy. So I may be a lot older than that, but the main age ranges I'm attracting are between the late 20s and early 40s. So I'm definitely able to talk about this, and this has been going on since last about September, I think, or maybe before that, maybe summer, late summer last year. So it's quite alarming, and there are kind of hazards involved in this, because yes, it's good to throw a light on this, and personally, people that I'm interacting with, you know, I'm going to be honest, some people they connect with you on a different levels. So some people, because of their own consciousness, will connect to you at the level of consciousness at which they are at. So if they are of what I call new energy, or that spiritual template, the ascension template, the unified template, it's all one and the same thing, they will connect on that level, and I will connect with them profoundly from the heart. And if they are not on that level, they're not able, you know, I can have that huge love and compassion and care from my heart, but they're not able to connect from there, and they largely connect into the lower chakras, sexual based chakras. But there is a, you know, because every person is different, there's such a mismatch of people. I mean, I've come across people that are spiritual connections to me, definitely matching consciousness. I've come across a twin flame, which I'm never going to use that term for them and even mention that they are that, but they are. So matching consciousness, a twin flame, soul family, soul mate, and then people that aren't any of those things, but are at various rungs of their journey. So there have been absolutely amazing moments in that, some of which have caused me quite a lot of emotional pain and grief, actually. The toll of that has been quite heavy. Personally, in a relationship I got involved with, a karmic one, which was, I won't go into that now, but it's incredibly toxic in the end. But I mean, also this mismatch of energies, because I'm hugely empathic, hugely intuitive and psychic. So that mismatch of energies, sensing massive desire and sexual energy on a large scale because of the amount of interest, and then also sensing, you know, people's hearts. And then if you happen to have a connection with that person, you know, the rare circumstance when you have a connection with them, that's beautiful. But if they're not able to reciprocate it, or you know, people make their own decisions on that. That's also painful emotionally. And it's also coming into connection with so many people that have got mental health issues, or they're shut away at home, working from home still and isolated. Huge epidemic of loneliness there. Coming across people that are pretending to be something they're not, psychopaths. I've been on the receiving end of a couple of very quite alarming experiences, which I can't go into here. About 3 different alarming experiences. No, 4. One which could have been catastrophic, actually, because I did actually meet that person in person, and that could have gone very, very nastily indeed if I didn't listen to my warning bells on that. And that feeds into what I'm going to say next, because you know, there are a lot of fake profiles in that world. There are a lot of, like I say, masking energetics, people hiding behind things. But it also feeds into what life experience they've had, or their multidimensional soul is tied into a particular program or something, or have been involved in something like, let's say, paedophilia, or sexualization, or pornography, or you know, anything along those lines, or if they're psychopathic or sociopathic or whatever. all that gets all that gets into the mix as well. So for somebody like me that's really sensitive to energy, and this would apply to any empathics, you know, empaths, anyone that's empathic, you don't have to be psychic or intuitive to be hit in that way, but you know, that seems to amp it up even more. You will be picking up on those programs as well. And because I'm a template, like many of us are, you know, you become an automatic template as you go. As you more conscious you become, the more people imprint upon that template, and it activates the template in them. And there's this projection and reflection, and they see in you what they have to clear through their own field. And if there are tiny hints of that in your field, they project their stuff onto you like a mirror, and then they don't really see you. They see what they project on you. So they'll see you as a porn star. They won't see you as a woman, or even a human sometimes. Or they'll project on you that you're a child, and it goes really distorted and quite really dodgy energy that way. Very few see you for what you are, and the wholeness of you, and the intelligence of you, and the spirituality of you, and the consciousness of you. There are exceptions, and those exceptions are wonderful to meet, or to come across, or to connect with. But that happens in very few cases, shall we say. So most will just see what their unresolved stuff is. They will bounce it onto you, and they will want to play out that unresolved stuff, sometimes to heal it, but sometimes just to repeating patterns. So it's enormously hazardous. And then you have the added complication of people hooking into the chakras that they are seeing you through. So if they're seeing you through the lens of their lower chakras, and they are hooking into yours, you have the added complication that if you engage with them energetically in certain ways, without even having to meet them, that's over messaging or texting or anything, it's almost the same as if you had been actually physically active with them. And there's this kind of been linking with the chakras, and that's even more amplified if you have an actual connection with them. So you have all this going on, and then you have their sexual history or stuff also trying to run through your template. The whole thing is quite hazardous. Then you're going to add into the complication, this very real complication, which I'm going to have to speak in code about, because such are the times we're living in that we're not actually able to spell things like this out without getting them bumped off of, bumped out of YouTube. But if those people have had Jabberwockies in the arm, all their Jabberwockies, which I've spoken about before, about those and my views on that, Um, the research hasn't been done yet. Certainly those have been Jabberwockied with blood transfusions. Apparently it passes, the Jabberwocky passes in the blood to people that haven't been Jabberwockied. It's crossing the barrier there. I don't know what happens with semen. I don't know what happens with that, if that's passed to the woman, whatever, or doesn't have to be a woman. If it was passed from man to man, I don't know what happens with that. If there's a transmission in the same way, if one has to almost apply almost like a sexually transmitted, almost like illness really, that then the unjabberwockied person then has to try and clear that through their field, because it's as if they'd been jabberwockied. So that's an added hazard, because you're trying to clear foreign, as in extraterrestrial, malevolent extraterrestrial foreign material through your system that came from the person that was jabberwockied. So that's another hazard, because that has all sorts of material in it that one is trying to clear through their field as well. Another thing that is really interesting is that there are streams of consciousness. If we say energy goes where our attention flows, and you know what I'm like with my rhymes, as little rhyming couplets. Energy goes where our attention flows, or where our attention flows, energy goes. It's really fascinating to me. It's shockingly so how you can have, for example, 50, 60 Capricorns in a 24-hour period that they happen to click on your profile, or you click on them, and every single one is a Capricorn, or every single one has the same name. Not 50 or 60 the same name, but maybe 6 or 7 have the same name. And 6 or 7 with the same name contact you, and with the same age, and with the same part of the country. And you would say to me, how is this possible? How does that happen? And again, I've seen it up close and personal, or actually connected with 3 or 4 people with the same name over and over again. And it's each name carries a sound or a frequency of consciousness. So each person has a particular signature and a particular frequency. So it's not that everyone with the same name has the same energy or same frequency, but they're like crossover points. So I see it's like a stream of consciousness, and then this happens, it dips in and out of it, weaves in and out of it, and there's that going on. So that's why you'll get a whole load of people with the same first name, or a whole load of people then the same star sign, linking to the same star sign over and over again. And then it will change, it'll all change. And it isn't not just in the world of online dating, but then you'll get emails dropping from people with the same name that was on the online dating, the same first names, or the same astrological star sign, and so it goes on, and then it extends to something that plays on the radio, and it's the same name or the same words, and it's TV, that link that goes on and on, because you're in sync with, or in alignment with, that flow of consciousness. And to me, it's fascinating and really interesting, because you're seeing it at speed, because you're clicking on these things at speed. That's the thing. Can be absolutely overwhelming for the central nervous system, for someone like me and someone like you that's empathic and intuitive, or sensitive, because it's a bit overwhelming, because it's so much incoming at once. And like I say, this is, I'm calling it sort of bullet for my Valentine, the hazards of online, the energy hazards of online dating. Because although there are gems and wonderful gems in it, oh my God, there's a couple of people that stand out, that and again, I almost say that, there's a little bit of sadness in my eyes there, because I'm so pleased that I've come into connection with those people. And it's a question of having to let go continuously. That's the biggest and most relieving thing I can say that I've evolved through this year. And other people been talking to me about this as well, that have been on a spiritual path for a while, and suddenly they've all said the same thing and said, it's strange, I can let go now in a way I never could, and I can as well. It's a case of just not, we are humans, so we do get upset, and we do cry, and but it's a question of just honoring the feeling, letting it pass through, and just not holding on to it, at all, holding on to the story you built around it, or the expectation or the hope you built around it, but just letting go, really. There's nothing else we can do, because otherwise it's unprecedented misery and suffering. To be honest, I've had enough suffering in my life. I'm done with it. I am done with it. Um, so it's a question of not repressing the feeling and not honoring that it's there, honoring it and letting it flow through, and then just letting it go, just let it pass, and let it go again. So you have that side of it, because it's an emotional roller coaster. If we go back to, if you lived in a small village or a small town, not that many years ago, even before the real explosion of the internet, you would maybe meet one person or something, and everybody knew everyone else, and it wasn't an overwhelm on your senses of electronics and artificial intelligence and apps and 24/7 communication, and your WhatsApp is pinging again, and all sorts of mismatch of energy, and people coming at you with their sexual programs or pornography stuff, or all sorts of distortions that maybe are in their energy field or timeline, and projections and reflections that gets put upon you, or people that are genuinely connected with you, that you genuinely start to fall for, to be honest, whether you've met them in person or not. And then for whatever reason, sometimes it can be lack of attraction, but often it's not the lack of attraction, it's the stuff they want to do on their own journey, or sometimes it's frightening to move forward with somebody. Sometimes it doesn't feel right for them. Sometimes they prioritize other things, and they don't want to go there, so you have the real, whether you've met them in person or not, you have the real highs and lows, like a roller coaster of that, because you do, again, anyone would, I can only, and I can understand that from everybody's perspective, but from my own personal perspective, I've got such a big heart, and that is my superpower, being the Queen of Hearts. No, that is my that sounds big-headed, but I'm a Leo, so we are kings and queens as well. That is my superpower, like it's everybody's superpower, but it's also, it's incredibly hard when you care about people and you connect to people, and then that they're gone, or they're on the perimeters, or that's it, an exchange happens, and of energy, and that's it, or their expectations are very different to yours. And like I say, it's, if you go back again to meet one person maybe in a year or something like that, and you're suddenly engaging with multiple people, I don't mean meeting multiple people, meeting up with them, but engaging with them on messaging or some form. Maybe you'll only meet one of them or two of them, but it's interesting, and I try and take everything as a gift and learning. Oh my God, I've learned so much, and I've got such an appreciation for men, and huge pieces of work will come out around this, and a massive understanding and a love for them, and I'm intensely and immensely grateful for the experiences. I'm also exhausted, and in every sense of the word, and again, but it's a massive learning experience, and I wouldn't be talking about this and bringing out this work, it's a bit of a minefield, and I guess the only way to process it is either to limit our time within that world and not be in that world every single day engaging with it online, or to come out of that world. I personally, now I've been given the keys to the sweet shop, having been 10 years celibate and single by choice until recently, um, don't really want to come out of the sweet shop again, and that's quite understandable. And I've had to look at my reasons why that is. And is it an addiction to the highs and the lows of the chemicals attractions? Yes, some of that. But it's not really the biggest part of that now. Um, there are other reasons, and because people don't mix so much in the same way, and I think that's a travesty as well, and for myself as well. Um, a lot of it is done by originally connecting online, then mixing, and it just feels completely, I'm in resistance to, and it just doesn't feel right. It feels wrong for me to come out of that world entirely, but I'm probably going to have to monitor the amount I'm in it, because it's overwhelming for my system. And um, the highs and the lows that go with it, the disappointments that go with it, the having to fend off continuous sexual advancements. It's really getting tiring now, to be honest. It's been going on for a long time. That are done, through messaging or online, some completely inappropriate. Um, but also, the main thing for me is where you connect with the energy of somebody. And like I say, if you connect from the heart, it's profound. Whatever that is, whether it's a twin flame, a matching consciousness, soul family, or none of the above, it's somebody that's on a similar resonant frequency. Some of the people I connect with are being templated by me. Basically, I'm working when I'm in that arena all the time for no money. And actually, not only for no money, but I'm paying for the subscription to the dating site, and I'm working. And it took my very dearest friend to point this out to me the other day. I said, well, you're working 7 days a week, Lindy. No wonder you're exhausted, because that's work, what you're describing there. And there is pleasure in it, obviously. But yeah, a lot of it is working when you think about it. So again, it's a case of approaching it differently and reframing it. But the hazards in that world are very real, and it may be kept in like a cyber world, and it may be a lot of the time you aren't meeting these people. And if you're meeting them, I'm not saying there aren't hazards to that. I mean, there are wonderful things to that because you're meeting them in person, but there are also, once you bring it into the real and the semi-solid, shall we say, the physical, obviously you're navigating it in, let's say, the more conventional way then, that you would navigate. It's so weird that everything, that's been the shock to me, because I come from a generation where you connect with people by meeting them in person, and then you don't connect with them in any other way first before you've even met them. It's all the other way around. So people are connecting first according to what level of consciousness they're at. And I can only comment on that age range, but particularly in the age range between late 20s, but particularly in the 30s. They're connecting very fast sexually. I don't know if this, I really can't comment, as this is what 30-something-year-olds do, and that's what they consider normal, or not. I can't think I'm the only person that this is happening to, but they all seem to approach it that way round first, and then if they, without even meeting you in person, like cyber sex really, and that's how they seem to want to approach it, or they seem to think that as soon as you connect with them, they have to get their clothes off on camera and send you pictures of it. It's been, when it first happened, it was a shock to me. I mean, I've kind of become numb to it really, because it's happened so many times now, which is a shocking thing to say. So it's strange, and quite, it's quite disturbing as well. Even if you really are connected to the person, like you've got a real connection to them, spiritual connection, soul connection, consciousness connection. How do I explain it? When you're interacting in energy with people, you're interacting in energy, whether you are physically sleeping with them or having intimacy or sex with them, or whether you are energetically doing it. So unless you're someone that's able to detach from their emotions, and somebody in the heart cannot detach from their emotions, we cannot do it. We are intimacy templated. If you engage in any romantic or sexual or intimacy way online or messaging, it is almost the same as physically making love or having intimacy or physical interaction. And so you have the fallout of that. The energetic fallout of it through your field, clearing their sexual stuff and yours, but the emotional fallout of it. Because if you really start to have feelings for the person and you're connecting with them, you might interact with them for a few times on messaging, and then one or the other of you has dropped out of each other's lives, or on the perimeter, or it's gone, or you've been friend zoned or ghosted or whatever, from either side, either party. And there is, unless you're a cold-hearted son of a bitch, really, unless you're as cold as anything, you are, if you're of the heart and you're empathic, intuitive, you're going to feel that, and that's going to have an emotional fallout and an energetic fallout. It's going to press upon anything in you that's not just unresolved, but the history that you've got, to do with loss or abandonment and endings and relationships and things like that. You could say, well, it's not a relationship because you haven't met the person, but you've interacted with them in energy as if you have, and it's just as strong, as powerful as if you haven't have met them in the physical or not. So this is a really big hazard. I don't know if this is happening with people in their late 40s or 50s, because I've not engaged with that age range personally. Not late 40s into 50s. I can tell you it's happening en masse in their 30s, like en masse, and it troubles me greatly. It troubles me greatly because I care and I do love people and I've got a big heart. And I didn't know, again, it was such a massive problem for so many men to be in this category where they are desperate for connection, but they keep choosing erection. And I said this in a live event, and I was laughing when I was doing some channeling, and they said it's not the erection, it's the connection. But it's so true. They're choosing erection over connection. They're choosing other priorities over emotional connection, spiritual connection, soul connection, consciousness connection with somebody. And sometimes it's the right thing for them to do, to, if they've got their own boundaries and their own reasons, obviously, but many times it's catastrophe, because they're not choosing consciously, they're not choosing their heart, they're making choices for other reasons. They're scared to get hurt, they're scared to have a connection, they're scared of the consequences, they're scared to make it real. There's a safety in hiding behind texts and messaging. So you've got all this going on, and for the empath and the sensitive and the psychic in that world, it is an absolute bombardment. And you have, like I say, the energetics, where you have the repeating patterns of this, multiple with the same astrological sign, multiple with the same name, multiple with the same age. It's extraordinary. Again, where it's stream of consciousness that you've linked into, and then it keeps coming up everywhere. And you've got the people that are tied up with, everybody has their own story. Let's face it, we're human. Everybody has their own stuff. Everybody's been through something. Everybody's got some history. Everybody's got something that's had an effect on their physical body or in their mental health. Everybody's got something. So you have this massive mismatch of that, and you also have anything that they've got looped into in regards to pornography, sexualization or sexual programming, abuse, sexual abuse, paedophilia, everything. You've got that. But then you've also got their projection, that the more light you are and the more that you are a conscious template, you've got their projection onto you of what they see you as, or what they want to see you as, but also largely what they need to clear through their own field. So like I say, it's a double-edged sword. I love men, I love male energy. Obviously I love female energy as well, but I'm talking about the male energy predominantly here, from my personal thing, because I'm on a dating site to link up with males. So it's that side of it which I'm appreciative of. I'm learning so much. I've helped an awful lot of people and they'll never know it, and I've done it all for no money, and I'm not trying to be a heroine there. I'm just saying that is what it is. But it's also it's really exhausting. Sometimes my physical health has benefited from it, sometimes it hasn't. I've just been through an extremely bumpy few days, which I won't go into. But yeah, so it's hazardous. So bullet for my Valentine, sometimes we are taking the bullet for our Valentine that we'll never know what we're doing on a bigger picture there. And again, that's not to sound like a heroine or a hero. It is what it is, but it's if you are intuitive, psychic, empathic, if you're becoming conscious, if you're going through an ascension process, you're going to have to be even more careful in that dating world, because you can get overwhelmed with all the stuff I'm listing here, because it's all energy. It's all energy, and it's not like we have the slowness of meeting one person every couple of months or one person a year or something. Like I say, like if you were all in the same town and you couldn't travel except you were on a horse or in a horse and cart to the next village, you might be exposed to a few hundred people a week. I mean, I'm being exposed to a few hundred people a week. I don't know if that's normal or if that's exceptional, because I've never been on online dating until the end of last summer. So I don't know if that's normal, if I've got an exceptional high amount here. And you can see that big sigh I'm about to take, and I'm eternally grateful. And some of those people are absolutely wonderful. A lot of them are just completely not able to see me at all. I mean, and that brings sadness to me. And you can probably see that sadness in my eyes, because, you can see that sadness in my eyes, because I want to be seen, and I want to be seen for the wholeness of me, for my intelligence and for my humanity and for my heart, and not just seen sexually, which is the largest thing that happens with me. But I guess that's because I'm someone that has been templating men's basically penises to their hearts and hearts to their penises, getting them to connect up their consciousness so that the two are connected and they go into an intimacy template. I guess that's why they see me like that all the time. So it is like working, and yet there are moments of absolute personal bliss within that. Are they going to be long lasting? That is the question I have to ask myself, and like I say, I am somebody that always takes the positives out of everything, but it's an incredibly interesting world. But if you are a very sensitive person, and like many of you watching this are, you're going to have to be really mindful and careful in that world, because you can get pulled into all sorts of things, and you have to just keep rebalancing and grounding constantly. I mean, this is almost a reminder to myself as well. You have to keep rebalancing, coming away from it, breathing, grounding yourself, connecting to nature, but grounding in other ways as well. And just keep coming back to your center. Keep coming back to your center continuously. So, bullet for my Valentine. Taken a lot of bullets lately. Bit fed up with it now, really, to be honest. Don't want to take any more bullets for my Valentine. And you know, I can't, you know, if I look a bit teary, I'm a little bit emotional today, I have to admit, and you can see that in my eyes there, but I don't feel sad, but I do feel a bit emotional. Um, you know, there are some people I connect with through that world, and you know, I still have compassion for them, and they're an individual, and it might be a short-lived orbiting of energies, and then they're out again. And I know it's the, you know, there's all particular mindset they have, and you know, I just have to cut and run. And there are others that I have huge compassion for, and let's say they need help in other ways, in a way, really. I know that's not my job. But I know that's who I am and what I do. And you can't help everybody. You're not meant to help everybody, but sometimes you come across that. And there are others that your heart just go, you know, you start to fall for, you know, and I've said this so many times, you know, I'm not going to change now. And look at my eyes all glistening. I'm not going to change now. I have such a big heart. You know, one of my friends said to me, she's been in my life over a year now, so let's say a fairly new friend, but a dear friend, said to me, "You've got the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met, Lindy." And like I say, it's a superpower, but you know, it's also, it takes immense courage to keep that open, because everybody that you interact with, you know, you care for profoundly. Because I have the capacity to do that. It's not because I'm needy. It's because I see the divinity in pretty much everyone, even psychopaths, you know. I see the divinity in everyone, and I don't try, I see the best in everyone. Um, so I do have that, you know, divine love for them, but you know, sometimes that crosses over into that kind of more physical, you know, care and love. And people can only reciprocate that to the level that they can reciprocate it. You know, it can only be given to the level that people can. And you know, sometimes they have um, no idea that that is how I feel, or they will feel just this amazing love coming from me, because obviously I'm coming from the heart, and they will be in receipt of that and the templating of that, but they will not translate it into the physical, you know, into a physical um, relationship. So, like I say, it's a minefield. It's a minefield for someone like me, and for someone like you know, if you're watching this video, you're likely to be very much like me. So, it's one of the most interesting things I've ever done. I found it liberating in so many ways and amazing. Don't want to leave that world, but at the same time, I'm going to have to modify how I interact in it, because you know, I have to be mindful. I've got to keep taking it back to grounding and you know, doing what's best for me, really, not what's, you know, best for everybody else, really. So on that note, no more bullets. I'll love you and leave you. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time and patience. I wish you so much love on this Valentine's Day, and hope you're not taking any bullets for your Valentines or anyone else. Peace out.